Good morning. How are you? I'm glad you came to worship with us this morning, both here in the worship center and for those of you who are watching online. So this morning we're going to talk about what Daniel is mostly known for, this test of being thrown in the lion's den. It is one of those stories and narratives in the Bible where you think, is that really true? Could it possible that those things really happen? So if you would pull out your message notes, we've been in the series on Daniel, and now for a long time, we come to the 8th test in Daniel's life. Now, at this point, Daniel now was an old man. We started learning about him when he was a teenager, when he was about 15 years old, and we saw 3 or 4 tests in his life while he was a teenager. And then we'll look at some of the tests in his 20s, and then in his 30s, and his middle years. Now, Daniel, can anybody guess how old Daniel is at this time now? At this story, him being thrown in the lion, Daniel is now 82 years old. How many of you are 82 years old here? Oh dear. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else in 82 years old? So if you think about Daniel at this story, this is about your age, about that time in Daniel's life. Now, when you think about 82 years old, remember Daniel had a special diet. Do you remember that? So what they said was, what doctors and nutritionists say, if you follow the Daniel plan, at the age of 82, you are only like you're in your 30s. Can you imagine that? So if you're thinking of, oh my goodness, Daniel's like me, I'm 82. But you are 82 because of what you eat right now. But if you follow the Daniel's plan, the Daniel diet, they said even though Daniel was 82 at that time of his life, his chronological age is 82, they said that he was probably, his body and his mind and his physique was probably like in his late 30s, 40s. So that's got half his age. But he is 82 and he has survived at least 2 kings. And two empires that had passed him, and 2 different empires, in the Babylonian Empire, which was crushed by the Syrian Empire. We talked about this last week, and now the Persian Empire has come in. You know, the amazing thing is, if you study world history and you look at this is actually there, right? And this is all in history. Crushed the Babylonian Empire. Now, Daniel was such an amazing man. With Pastor Jerry last week, you talk about the writings at the wall. He was such an amazing man, an amazing leader, and a man of integrity that every single king that comes into the kingdom wants to keep him. Now there's, in every administration, when there's a new administration, even in the States, even in any government, when there's a new administration, the king or the president has the option to take away everyone from the previous administration and put in his new people. But get this, Daniel keeps getting rehired and rehired and rehired by all this king. Not only was he being rehired, but he was getting promoted and promoted and promoted. We're going to pick up from where we were last week, and thank God Pastor Jerry shared the word last week, because I was with the women in the women's retreat, and although I came back on Saturday night, I did a funeral Sunday morning with one of the Dial's very, very close family friend. And so I could not say no. I had to serve the family for that funeral. But what we learned last week was Belshazzar was Nebuchadnezzar's son. And he should have learned from his father's mistake, but he didn't. And so what happened, we see here that God had told Belshazzar, your lesson last week, your days are numbered. Now he gets a new boss, okay? A new king came in and killed Belshazzar, destroyed Babylon, really wrecked Babylon, and his name is Darius. Basically, we call him Darius the Medes, who is the general with another guy who is very famous in history. His name is Cyrus the Great. How many of you know who Cyrus the Great is? Nobody knows history. Darius the Mede actually killed Daniel's previous boss, who was Belshazzar, ransacked the city of Babylon. He destroys the city, he takes over, and now he rules. But here's the amazing part. He keeps Daniel. See, Daniel was part of the old administration, but when King Darius came in, he kept Daniel. King Belshazzar remembered that what Pastor Jerry said last week, that he promoted Daniel to be one of the top leader in his empire. Now, we've been saying this every Sunday. Babylon was the most powerful empire at that time. But now with this particular stories we're going to talk about this morning, there's a new king that has taken over. And the past king said to Daniel, I'm going to promote you to be the highest in the kingdom, in the empire. But guess what? After he promoted Daniel that day, that night, King Belshazzar was killed by King Darius, the new king coming in. So if you think about it, whatever promotion Daniel had at that moment, it only lasted that day because the king, there was already a turnover, a new king coming in. Now what happened there is when the new king came in, the new king said, I'm going to change the division of Babylon. And when Babylon was changed, he told Daniel, I want you to be one of the top three governor in my kingdom. Now think about that. Isn't that amazing? He came from the old administration, and the new king said, I want you, Daniel, to serve with me. Now, this is a big promotion in Daniel's life. He's 82 years old. For many of us, 82 years old, we're already retired. I hope you are. Some people retire at the age of 60, right? Some people want to retire at the age of 30 years old. They're just tired of working, right? But Daniel here, we see that he gets promoted until at the age of 82 years old. Now, can I say this? As we look at the Daniel story this morning, if you are interested, and yesterday we had a leadership summit, an 8-hour leadership summit. Thank God I survived and I thrived. I survived 8 hours. But here's what I'd like to say. If you are sitting here this morning and you're considered, I want to be promoted in life. I want to get ahead in life. I want to be promoted as a leader. I think this is a lesson that you need to take really very seriously. Because out of Daniel's life today, we're going to learn what does it take for me to get to the next level in my area of career, in my area of leadership, in my area of influence with this generation. And if you're interested in getting promoted at work, I ask you to pay attention to the next 3 verses, because these are the reasons Daniel outlasted everybody else in the workplace. Let me ask you real quick. How many of you are still working? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you are retired? Raise your hands. All right. How many of you are tired? You're just tired, right? I think a lot of us are tired. But for those of you who are working, and those of you who plans to go back to work, someone told me, Pastor Phoebe, I'm retired, but I'm tired staying at home. So I think I'm going to go back to work and just try the workforce again. I would suggest that you consider what we're going to talk about this morning. Here are the 3 reasons Daniel kept getting promoted. First of all, one reason was his professional competence made him what? Stand out. Now notice what it says in Daniel 6:3. Read that with me. Daniel so distinguished himself above all the other governors and the administrators by his what? His exceptional qualities that the king planned to put Daniel in charge of the entire kingdom. Can you imagine the king telling you, Daniel, I want you to be in charge of the entire kingdom? How does he get there? Folks, his professional competence made him stand out. It was very clear that Daniel was a gifted leader, but more than that, if you study the life of Daniel, and we learned this yesterday, one of the principles of leadership is this: a leader is a learner. Everybody say learner. If you want to get ahead in life, you cannot stop learning. And this is what we learn in Daniel's life. When he was brought to Babylon as a prisoner of war, the first thing the king did to them was what? Educated them. He had to change the way they were thinking because they were Jews. And so when the king brought them to Babylon, what was the king's number one mission? To indoctrinate them to Babylonian culture. And so Daniel was a student. We talked about this a few weeks ago. All leaders are learners. The moment you stop learning, you stop leading. He was a student not only of culture, he was a student of God's word, he was a student of people, he always studied people, he was a student of history, he knew what happened in the past, and he was a student of culture. The Bible says that he spent his entire life learning. He just kept getting wiser and wiser and wiser. See, if you make wisdom the goal of your life, there is no end to that. You can just keep getting better and better and better. You know, studies have shown that when a student graduated from college, 80% of the time he doesn't pick up a book to read again. Why? Because when people usually graduate from college, they think, I'm done. I'm done with study. I'm done with books. I'm done with that. I got a degree. I got a diploma, and this is going to be my ticket. One of the things you're going to learn, and John Maxwell say this: if a leader stop growing and learning. And yesterday our theme was thriving. If you stop thriving, the chances are you're going to stay where you are. And if you're thinking, why can't I get promoted? Why can't I get up there? Chances are you've never pushed yourself and expanded yourself. In the case of Daniel, one of the main reasons why he was getting promoted was because he never stopped growing. Every time he was given a new challenge, he has to study about it. When he got promoted, he began to learn what's the scope of my responsibility? How can I better serve the people of the Babylonian Empire? How can I be a good asset to my boss? He was always learning, and he's 82 years old, and he's still getting promoted. Can you imagine that? That's a wise leader right there. Number 2, here's the second reason he kept getting promoted. His personal character, what? Oh, I love that. His personal character stands out. Here's another law of the leader. The foundation of solid and true leadership is character, not academics. Not even charisma. We learned that. The true foundation of leadership is not charisma, is not even academics, it's not even popularity. It is character. And we see here that Daniel was a man of integrity. He was a man of generosity. He was a man of humility. He was a man of goodness and kindness and wisdom. The Bible says this in the next verse, in Daniel chapter 6, verse 4. Would you read that with me? It says, when the administrators, they tried to find a reason to undermine Daniel in his work and accuse him of misconduct, but they were unable to what? They were unable to do so. They could not find anything to say against him. He was honest, reliable, hardworking, and incorruptible. He was never lazy or negligent in any task. Parents, can I say this? Let me give you a word of advice. You want to teach your children good management skill and good leadership skill? This is the verse. It says there, no wonder why he kept getting promoted. Would you like to hire a guy like Daniel? Would you? If you were a company owner, would you like someone who is honest, reliable, hardworking, incorruptible, and never lazy and never negligent on anything? If you own a company, would you like to hire a person like that? Absolutely. Now, like what I said, leadership foundation, the foundation of leadership is character. Can I say this for all of us who are here? If we want to get ahead, folks, at this time, I know we live in a generation, in a culture where character is not even important anymore. We have politicians who lie to us. Isn't that right? We have politicians who live very shady life, whose moral values are not even worth following. We have people in leadership today, not only in politics, but even in religious organization, in the business world, who do not have character. And you say, okay, they don't have character, why are they leading? Well, I want to let you know, character not having character might take you only to a certain point, but eventually, if you don't have good character, it will bring you down. We see this all the time. Now, notice we don't know why, but this administrator, in other words, Daniel's colleagues, the guys who work with Daniel, wants to pull him down. Now, maybe because they were jealous, because Daniel was a Jew. And they were Babylonians. And so they're probably thinking, well, we don't want you to lead us. This is our country. This is our empire. Why do we need a foreigner to lead us? Someone in the military told me, Pastor Friedman, that's one of the struggles sometimes we face in the military. Because as militaries, as Asians, as Filipino, I'm a master chief and I'm leading people who are of different races. And they think, well, you know what, you're Filipino, you don't know anything. Well, maybe that's what the Babylonian administrators or Daniel's co-workers think about him. But for some reason, they wanted to trap Daniel. They wanted to bring him down. They wanted to destroy him. And it says there, they tried to find something to say against him. But notice what the Bible says. They could not find anything. Now, it says they couldn't find anything, they were unable to find anything. Why? Because his personal character made Daniel stand out. Someone said it's very hard to be honest in a company where everybody practices dishonesty. It is very hard to stand firm on my conviction in a place where everybody is cheating and lying. But is it impossible? Is it impossible? No. It's hard, yes, but it's not impossible. And we see this in the life of Daniel. Here's the third element, and this is the most important one of all. It is his public commitment to God made him what? Made him stand out. His public commitment to God made him stand out. He just didn't profess and confess his faith quietly, professionally. He was saying, hey, yes, I'm a follower of the one true God. I follow Jehovah. He had a public commitment of who God is in his life. Daniel was very open. He was very public about his faith. No, he did not picket. He didn't debate people. He wasn't obnoxious. He was always fighting with other people of different religion. No, that's not what Daniel did. Daniel was poised. He was true, he was confident, he was open. The Bible says when he prays in public. He was not ashamed of his faith. Remember, he had led Nebuchadnezzar to faith in God, the king who threw the 3 Hebrew kids to the furnace. Remember that? Do you remember that? Yes. Okay. That king who threw the 3 Hebrew kids on the fireplace got connected to God. Why? Because of Daniel. Everybody knew where Daniel stood when it comes to his faith. Everybody knew where Daniel's heart was really devoted to when it comes to his faith, including his jealous co-worker. And that's why they said, the co-workers, these enemies who were conspiring to get him fired at work, that's what's happening here. He said his co-workers concluded, okay, it says our only chance of finding any grounds to get rid of Daniel will be to find something to accuse in his what? Religious practices. Wow. The guy's done nothing wrong and he's spotless, and there are people out there who wants to bring him down. I said this in the beginning of our session. The moment you begin to do the right thing, the legal thing, the moral thing, there will be people who will not want to let you succeed. And there will be people who will say to you, who do you think you are? You're better than us? Why do people get offended with somebody who is good, with somebody who's doing the right thing? You know why? And I said this, and I'll repeat this. Because when they look at you and you're doing the right thing, you're doing the God thing, you're doing the moral thing, they are jealous of you because they're thinking, I want to do that, but I don't have the courage to do it. Now, we see here that the other co-workers of Daniel concocted a trap. They wanted to trap Daniel. And let's read the story, and then we'll extract some of the lessons for today. Up here it says there, and I don't know if this is your outline, but let me read it. The officials who wanted, do you have that? No. The official who wanted Daniel removed from office, they went to the king Darius, and they told the king, King, wouldn't it be nice that for 30 days people will pray only to you, not to other God? They can only pray to you. Now, King Darius, that fed on his ego. Wow, that must be wonderful. For 30 days, people are going to worship me, right? So guess what the king said? Well, that sounds like a good idea. So all these guys said, well, you know what? Let it not only be an edict, let it be a law. Let it be a law. So here, King Darius, we already made the paperwork, signed the underlined letter, which is a declaration that within 30 days, people in your kingdom will only pray to you at a certain time. If anybody who prays to a different God will be thrown. There you go. This is the famous story of Daniel. Anybody who prays to a different God will be thrown to a lion's den. Now, the king, he felt like, oh, this is really nice. He was so overwhelmed by his ego and his pride and the kissing up of these administrators that he forgot Daniel. Now, if you read the story here, you know, Darius loved Daniel. Daniel basically won the heart of King Darius because of his competence, because of his character. But Darius forgot that Daniel was devoted to his God. He completely forgot that he loved Daniel. As a matter of fact, as you keep reading farther, he said, I favored Daniel. Daniel was his friend. Daniel was his confidant. He trusted Daniel, even though Daniel was a Jew. But he forgot that Daniel was devoted to his God. So this king signed the letter, the decree. And so what happened is, when the decree was signed, now here's something about the law, and you can find this in history. The law of the Medes and Persians is a very, very famous law in history. And it's this: when the king makes a law, it would never be revoked. It will never be reversed at all. Even the king cannot reverse his own law. The moment he makes a law and he signs the law, you can find it out in history. The law of the Medes and the Persians. The moment he signs the law, he could not revoke it. He could not repeal it. So the king, even he himself, when he finds out that he makes a mistake, he cannot repeal the law that he signed, and he cannot revoke it. So what happened was this. When the law was written already, all these guys went out and say, "Hear ye, hear ye." You know, when you watch those old movies, "Hear ye, hear ye. King Darius made a law that from this day forward, 30 days, within 30 days, no one is allowed to pray to anybody except to King Darius." Meaning, you only worship King Darius and pray to him. Now, these guys are so desperate to get rid of Daniel that they passed this national law just to hurt one guy. Remember this, they are only after one guy, but they passed the law to the whole land. That's amazing, isn't that right? Now, here's the most important part. How did Daniel respond to that? How did Daniel respond to that? Now, if I may ask you, if that happened in America, and they say, "We are going to illegalize prayer to any God, except you only pray to President Trump," and anybody who doesn't pray gets thrown in the lion's den. And this is the story here. It says, anybody who doesn't pray to King Darius will be thrown in the lion's den. Now, Daniel was very aware of the law of the Medes and Persians. Remember, he was up there. He knows the law. And so when he heard this, he knew even though he was highly favored by King Darius, even though he was very close to the king, even though he had connections to the king, and the king and him are close friends, he knew because of the law of the Medes and the Persians that the law will not be revoked and it will never be repealed. That means it will apply to him. So think about this. If you were in Daniel's case, what are Daniel's options here? What do you think are his options? I would suggest some options. Number one is he could accept the law and kind of pray to the king for 30 days. He can say, "Okay, God, you know, if I don't follow the law, I'm going to lose my job and I'm going to be thrown to the lion." So he's probably, one option is Daniel could have said, "God, forgive me. I'm going to take out my devotion to you for 30 days, and I'm going to pray to King Darius." Here's the second option. A second option is to publicly protest. Does that sound familiar? He would gather all the Jews, and he would carry placards, and he would scream, and he would fight the administration, and he would say, "No, we are Jews. We only worship the one true God. We are not," and he could have caused a commotion. It's a right cause, but not a very productive way. Here's a third possibility. He could have stopped praying to God for 30 days. Right? He could just say, "Okay, fine. I'm just not going to pray for 30 days. I'm not going to pray to the emperor, but I'm just going to stop praying to God for 30 days. Here's number 4 option. He could keep praying to God, the real God, but he'll just do it in secret. Right? He go, "Okay, I'll pray to you, God, but before I used to pray in public, but Lord, for 30 days, please understand me. I'm going to pray in secret." What do you think Daniel did? Let's look at what he did in verse 10. It says, when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt to pray as usual. Where? In his upstairs room with how? His window wide open, facing what? Jerusalem. Now you don't. If you know that the houses in Babylon, they're like square homes. They have what they call upper room, and in the upper room, basically, it's like how many of you have been to Iraq and all the Mediterranean, Middle East places, their houses are not A-frames, they're like boxes. Right? They're like boxes. And on top of that, sometimes they have a patio. That's where they have a party. Or sometimes they have a box on top of that. Another room. Now it says here that when Daniel, after he prayed, after he read the news and he found out that the law has been signed, what did it say there? He went up to his room and he knelt down like he always do in the last 82 years of his life. And not only that, he did not close the window like he always does. He opened the window and he faced Jerusalem and prayed. In other words, what Daniel was saying, I am not going to hide. I am going to publicly carry my faith. I know my life is at stake. He goes, I'm going to do this for all my life. I am not going to be afraid. I am not going to be scared. I'm going to pray as usual as I do. Now, this is exactly what the enemy were expecting Daniel to do. Let me ask you this. If you were in Daniel's place, what would be your decision? Think about it. If you were in Daniel's place, what would you come up with? Am I just going to not pray for 30 days? I'm going to pray in secret. Oh yes, okay, I'm just going to give in. I'll just pray to the emperor for 30 days. And then after that, I'll ask forgiveness from God and I'll come back to God. Now, what would you do if you were in Daniel's case? Now, we saw here that Daniel continued to worship God publicly. He went and in his upper room, opened the window, and he prayed. And guess what his enemies were doing? They were just waiting for that perfect moment. So when they saw Daniel praying, what did they do? They went up there and arrested him. They took him and brought him to the king. Now let me ask you this. Why do you think Daniel was so bold to not give in to the pressure of his boss, of his co-workers? Why was Daniel able to stand strong for God publicly? I like what Daniel, you know the problem with a lot of us today, Christians, and for those of us who are in the religious crowd, when the government, when politics gives something that we don't like, most of the time we get violent. Did you know that? We protest, we debate, we argue, we turn into like our politicians. Folks, Daniel took the godly way in handling the pressure that was being brought to him, not only by the government, but by his boss and by his co-workers. Now, why was Daniel so unafraid to do this? He knows the laws cannot be changed. He knows what it says. And yet, in spite of that, he did not waver. He was unshakable. You know why? Pull out your outline with me. Why was Daniel unafraid to stand out and speak up for God at work? First of all, because he remembers. Everybody say remembers. What did he remember? He remembered that God was faithful in the past. Can I get a witness? He remembered what God has done to him in his life. He remembered when his 3 friends were thrown into the fiery furnace and God spared them. He remembered how God was faithful to his people back then when they were coming out of Egypt. He remembered every single one of them. And that's the reason why when he was tested at this time, he said, no, I'm going to stand for God because I know my God is faithful. How many of you know that God is faithful? Let me ask you this. How many of you experience God's faithfulness in your life? The second reason why Daniel was able to stand out and speak out for God at his work was because he dialogued with God. How many times? He dialogued with God 3 times a day. He didn't only pray once in the morning and once in the evening. No, when he talks about dialogue, he's really talking to God. Not just like, oh God, bless my food. Oh God, bless my travel. Oh God, bless my sleeping. He didn't only pray, oh God, promote me. No, it says there 3 times a day. He would come out and really spend this dialogue. By the way, can I say this? Did you know that the word pray means talk? That when you're praying to God, you are talking to God, right? So when you talk to God, do you need to be fancy? Can you imagine if I talked to if my kids went to Max, okay, their dad, and they say, oh dear father of the Dial tribe, we admonish you to meet our needs. No. You know, when Jesus called the Father, he called him Abba. And you know what Abba means? Daddy. And so Daniel had this ongoing conversation with God, not once, but 3 times a day. Can I say this? If you have an ongoing relationship with Jesus Christ and with God, when you come out of that moment, fear will be gone from your life. If you come to God on a daily basis and you talk and you pray, God, would you please guide me? God, give me your mind. God, I'm having problem with my children. God, would you please help me to understand them? God, I'm having problem at my job. Would you please give me wisdom on how to deal with this? He did not only remember God's faithfulness, but he dialogued with God 3 times a day. And then the third is this. He knew what? He knew the reward was greater than any risk. Is it risky to break the law? Yes. Of course. He was going to be thrown in the lion's den, right? Will there be a punishment for breaking the law? Yes. Could he even lose his life? Yes, definitely. But guess what? When Daniel looked at the risk and the reward, he chose the reward. Friends, this is an important text because in America, change is happening very, very rapidly. If we remain passive, we might end up losing many of our religious rights. What if they make it a law that you can no longer worship any god you want? What if they make it a law to close down all the worship places? Now you might think, that will never happen in America. We are a democratic country. That will never happen. How did the law of abortion got passed? You and I are going to have to decide, like Daniel, am I going to stand for God publicly or am I going to hide? What is Daniel doing here? He's doing what we call a passive civil disobedience to the king. What do you mean a passive disobedience to the king? And I'd like you to hear me well here. An aggressive disobedience to the king, an aggressive disobedience to the law of the land would be to fight, to create an army to fight the king, to picket, to have a demonstration. That's an aggressive defiance. But Daniel did what we call a passive civil disobedience, meaning what? He did not go out and fight the king. He didn't go out and form a group of activists to fight the law of the land. He did not even do anything to make the attention be drawn to him. What did he do? He just followed and obeyed God. Quietly, politely, and kindly. Folks, can I say this? It is embarrassing. How many of you know about the Hillsboro, that Hillsboro Baptist Church pastor who would stand in front of the funeral when the military dies and their funerals are going on? This pastor and his congregation carry big signs, and the sign says, "God hates war. Military is a sin because you are killing people." And they would do this, and it is so embarrassing because the news would show this. What about the people who are against abortion? They would go to abortion. Christians who are against abortion, they would go to abortion clinic and they would harass and almost threaten the doctors. That's not what Daniel did. Can I get a witness? I think there's a lot that the church and Christianity need to learn in the life of Daniel. Daniel disobeyed the law, but he did it kindly, privately, and passively. He knew that the reward of doing the right thing were going to be greater than the risk. He said, "I'm going to do this. I know I can lose my life. It's okay." So it says there that Daniel's enemies went together to Daniel's house to catch him praying and asking God for help. They took him to the king. And at that moment, the king, guess what? If you read the story, he couldn't sleep when he saw that Daniel was the guy who disobeyed him. He was distraught. The Bible says he was distraught. He was depressed. He realized he is throwing one of his best friend to the lion's den. It says there, he could not sleep all night. Can you believe that? That's how troubled the king was when all Daniel's co-workers say, "King, here is the guy. Here is the guy who disobeyed you outrightly, and you call him your best friend? You call him your confidant? He was the guy who disobeyed you." And they threw him in the lion's den. You know, it says there that the king did not eat. He did not want to have any entertainment. He did not sleep. And he was very nervous. And it says there that he did not sleep all night. What do you think was going on in his heart? How many of you have ever lost somebody you really love in life? Doesn't it feel like your heart was ripped out? And what's really bad about this is the king realized he was the one who's going to throw Daniel into the lion's den. His decree, his signature. Now, how in the world do you stay strong in a time like that? Will you remember the benefits of doing the right thing? Now, here's 6 ways. Now, what are the benefits of doing the right thing? In Daniel's life, he remembers the benefit is going to be greater than the risk. The reward is going to be greater than the risk. What are the 6 benefits of taking a stand for God? Number 1. Standing for God is a victory over what? Is a victory over fear. Every time you stand for God, at work, in the community, in your neighborhood, with the friends that you have, it is a victory over the fear that you have. Let's admit this. It is not very easy to stand for God in front of a very, very ungodly community. Is it? Is it easy? No. Let me ask you this. How many at work, in your workplace, know that you are a follower of Jesus Christ? Or is that something you want to keep incognito? Is that something you want to keep as a secret? A pastor said, we have many secret service Christians. Secret service. You know what the secret service? They do not want to be recognized as being a Christian or a follower of Jesus Christ because it's scary. Why? People are going to expect more of you. There are people who likes to debate. They will debate you. And if you don't know what to say, you're like, oh, I don't know. And you feel violated. You feel demeaned. Because all around us is darkness and you're the single light. And you're thinking, if I light up my life here, man, I'm going to get it from every side. We learned this in our first session. When you begin to do right, you're going to irritate some people. And I'd like to clarify that. When you do right, it doesn't mean that you go around and you preach to them. No. When you begin to make right choices, when you begin to say, I know guys, I know you guys want to do that, but I can't do that because that runs against my faith and my conviction. What do? You want to be a priest? Are you a nun? Are you a pastor? Isn't that right? We get those. And that's the reason why for many Christians today, they don't want to be put in that situation. So what do? They remain quiet because we're afraid. But here's the point. The moment you take a stand for God, fear disappears. And you're going to realize it's just step by step. Notice there, fear is just a feeling and it cannot last. How many of you agree with me? The moment you take action towards your fear, it's going to come out. Fear is uncomfortable, but it will not kill you. How many times you were scared, but look at you, you're still alive, right? And then fear grows when I give into it, but it lessens when I move against it. Many of you know that I have a fear of flying. And I was forced to go to the Philippines to marry Princess at that time. And my fear, I overcome my fear because of my love for her. So I'm like, okay, fine, we'll just go. But I was tested again last year in August. I received a scholarship to attend the John Maxwell Team Leadership Coaching Team. And they paid for my hotel, they paid for my registration, a total of probably about $2,000 or $3,000. But I have to fly there. So at first I was looking at all the train ride. Then I was looking at all the bus ride. And I'm like, oh no, this is too long. And then I told Max, okay, Max, we're going to go to this because I get a scholarship. We'll just have to pay for our fare. So I booked the ticket for Max and myself. So Max said, oh, you're going to fly. Yes, I cannot turn down this scholarship. And I really want to grow as a leader. I want to learn. So I'm going to take this. So we booked the flight with Brother Bear, 2 tickets to go to Florida. Well, guess what? 1 week before we flew, Max got a job. Oh my goodness. He goes, Phoebe, I got a job. This contract just opened. Do you want me to not take the contract or take the contract? I said, if you don't take the contract, we don't have money. If you take the contract, we'll have money, but I have to fly by myself. So I took the fly by myself. It's like, oh God. So guess what? That week, I called all of you. Remember? I stood here Sunday morning. I said, pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. And then every day I would call all of you, would you please pray for me? And I was so overcome with fear. I would sleep and I would dream that I'm flying and the plane is going like this. That's how fear had really wrapped my mind. But that day, as I sat in the plane by myself, I was looking at the tarmac and I was saying, oh my goodness, the plane is carrying all that luggage? That's a lot of boxes. This plane is carrying all this passenger, plus the other. I was playing all the calculation in my mind. I'm like, oh, this plane is too heavy. I wonder if it's going to pick us up, But as I sat there, my last prayer was this: God, my life is in your hand. And I know, Lord, I have the entire church praying for me, and their prayer is carrying the plane. And it will take me to Florida. That's where I proved that when you step out to your fear, whatever you're afraid of, do it. Guess what? When you do it, it lessens the fear. Now, when Peter and John and James were being tested, when they were being persecuted by the Romans at this time, it was sort of something like this. They pray a prayer like this, and it's in your outline. It says, Lord, you know the threats people make, so help us as your servants speak the word without fear. Can I get a witness? So when you stand for God in public, whatever it is, if it's just saying to your coworkers and saying to your friends, you know what, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. That runs against my conviction. Man, if your coworkers are dragging you to a place that will cause you to commit adultery and fornication, you can stand up and say, honey, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I love God, and I love my wife, and I love my family. Can I get a witness? Yes. Don't just say, oh, sige, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just hang out with you. Fear always responds to action. Now, you might want to remember that verse that we read. Lord, you know the threats people make, so help me as your servants to speak your truth without fear. Here's the second benefit of standing for God. Standing for God builds my faith and what? It builds my faith and character. Everybody say faith and character. If you have those two, guess what? You will become unshakable. When you have faith and character, you are going to get promoted in life. Now, the only way to develop the muscle is to put them in practice. When you begin to stand for God, faith and character is like a muscle. It begins to be strong. It begins to be stretched. Now notice what 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 8 says. You must never be ashamed to tell others about our Lord. With the strength that our God gives you, how many of you, I'm not going to let you raise your hands, but there are some Christians who are even ashamed to pray for their food in public. Did you know that? So sometimes they scratch their head. Amen. Right? The food is there and you're scratching, oh Lord, thank you for this food. Amen. I remember one time Max and I were in a restaurant and the food came, so we prayed. After we prayed, a couple came and said, it is so nice to see young couples still praying for their food. And I smiled. And I said, and Max said, oh, that is so nice. I smiled because she called us young couples. Not because she complimented us to pray for our food, but she called us young couples. Are we ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Standing for God is a victory over fear, and standing for God builds my faith and character. Try it. Begin even with prayer. Before you eat, close your eyes and say, God, thank you for my food. Thank you so much that I can enjoy the flavor of this food. And God, please help me not to eat too much so that I do not gain weight, right? Number 3, standing for God gives us an opportunity to do, standing for God gives God an opportunity to do a miracle. How many of you would like to see a miracle? Yes. Do you stand for God? Yes. Now, look at what happened here in this story. Daniel 6:19-23. Here's what happened. At the light of first dawn, the king got up and hurried to the pit filled with lions. When he got there, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice. Notice that. He called to Daniel in an anguished voice. He said, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? Stop there. Wow, the king in his pajamas. Even before the sun came out, it says at the first light of dawn, he started running to the lion's den. And with anguish in his voice, he said, Daniel, servant of the Most High God, did your God save you from the mouth of the lions? Wow. What does that show you? He really loved Daniel, isn't that right? He was very worried about Daniel. Think about this, folks. Let me ask you this. For those of you who are working, can you honestly say that your boss loves you? That he thinks highly of you? That your boss would run in his pajamas early to go to your house and find out and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Look at what happened. This is what it says. Next verse. Daniel answered, O king, my God sent his angels, and he shut the mouth of the lions, and they have not hurt me at all, because God knew I've done nothing against him or you. Oh, king. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the pit. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the pit. And then Daniel was lifted out, and there was not a single, get this again, here we go again. There was not a single scratch on his body because, why? Because he had trusted God. Can I get a witness? The truth is this. Most people have never seen an absolute miracle in their life. Why? Because we never give God a chance to perform a miracle in our lives. What we always do is we try to jump to other things. Folks, can I say this? The next time you hear you have cancer, the next time you hear you are given 6 months to live, and I'm not going to say that maybe you live another 30 years, but here's a lesson here. The first thing that we need to do is we need to trust God, come to God and say, God, here I am sick, I am dying, and they give me 6 months. I'm going to trust you for a miracle, but I am going to trust your heart. Because can I say this? Sometimes God doesn't choose to deliver what we ask for the way we ask for it. Why? Because his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. This made me think. Our church is facing a miracle waiting to happen. How many of you know that? We are praying to build a worship art center that was going to cost between about $7 to $10 million because it is a worship art center. It's going to have schools of art. It's going to have a facility where arts can be encouraged and art can be taught. It's going to have a state-of-the-art worship center for the children's ministry. The children's facility will be as beautiful as the adult facility. It will be a worship art center of their own. The youth and all this. And so it's a big miracle. On our own, we cannot make this happen on our own. But we have a big God, right? And I'd like to say this. Thank you for those of you who are continuously giving your pledge. This November ends that 3-year pledge that we have. And you say, Pastor, have we reached our goal? Not yet. It's not even a drop in the bucket yet. So you ask me, so how is this going to happen? I don't know. That's God's problem. But you know what? I ask us to continually be faithful. Amen? There's 2 points to a miracle. You can either sit down and watch the miracle happen, or you can be part of making the miracle happen. Right? Which one is more exciting? One or two? Two. When you're a part of the miracle that happened, in the end, when the miracle happens, you can say, I gave to that. Thank you, God. I was a part of it. Some people give many, many thousands of dollars. Some people give few $100s. Get this, in the eyes of God, they are the same. Are you with me? In the eyes of God. So you cannot say, oh, I only gave $1, she gave $10. That's okay. If you gave it from your heart and you gave what you have, sacrificially, folks, that in the eyes of God will be honored. That's when miracles happen in the life of Daniel. Can you imagine if he chose not to live and stand for God? He would not have seen that miracle in his own life. He read about the miracles of his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather when they came out of Egypt. He's heard the miracle. The story was repeated to him. He read it in history. He heard the miracle that happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego coming out of the fire. No burn, doesn't even smell like smoke. But the miracle personally had to happen to Daniel when he took a stand to stand for God. Here's the other benefit of a miracle. It encourages other believers to stand up. Can I get a witness? How many of you believe that courage is contagious? How many of you also believe that fear is contagious? Right? Isn't it crazy sometimes? Like when you go to a new place, let's say you go in a new place and then some crazy people like to tell scary stories. Do you have friends like that? You sit on the table and say, did you know I feel something? Did you know I went to the bathroom, someone touched my back? Did you know I felt this? I was walking there and I felt... You know what? If you tell that to somebody, guess what? They're going to get affected. Isn't that right? I'm not going to tell my story. But fear is very contagious. But guess what? The moment somebody takes courage, that is also contagious. Isn't it right? How many of you watch Braveheart with Mel Gibson? Remember? Braveheart. He said, friends, let's fight. Countrymen, let's fight for our daughters. Let's fight for our wives. And let's fight for our families. And the people, the other guys who were just sitting and kind of like scared when Mel Gibson said, let us fight. And he showed courage and boldness. Guess what? Even those people who were afraid began to stand up and join the revolution. Folks, I want to let you know this. When someone stands for God, it is a very, very powerful example, not only to the believers, an encouragement to the believers, but even to unbelievers. When you take a stand, and I'd like to say this, not in a crazy way. You know what I'm saying? When you take a stand in a very gentle, very confident way, you become like a dynamite. It impacts the life of those who do not believe in God. It is a powerful example to unbeliever when you say, sorry, I cannot do this. And say it in love. Don't say it like you're better than them. Oh, I don't do that stuff. I'm a Christian. Have you met people saying that? They need lesson. Christians like that need teaching. You are not strong and you are not powerful when you become obnoxious. You do not become a very powerful testimony when you become rude. Can I get a witness? When you're abrasive, you cannot be a powerful testimony. But just like Daniel, he was calm, he was cool, he was collective, he was gentle. And he said, I am so sorry, guys. I worship my one true God. I respect the king. I respect you guys. But I cannot do what you have made into law. I cannot pray to the king. So here, take me, throw me in the lion's den. I'm willing to go. My goodness. You know what happened to that story? It says there in chapter 25 and 28, then King Darius sent his proclamation to every race and language on earth. And he said this, I decree that the God of Daniel is to be honored and worshiped in every part of my kingdom, for he is the living God. Who said that? The pagan king. The pagan king said that the God of Daniel is the one true God. He is the living king. Why did the king say that? Because Daniel stood for his God. Last but not the least, standing strong for God will be rewarded in eternity. Can I get a witness? We learned this on our Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. It says there, consider yourself blessed if people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you. What did it say? Because of, that's what Jesus said, because of me, not because you're crazy or you're obnoxious. If that happens, what did he say? Be happy, knowing that you will be rewarded greatly. Where? In heaven. And remember that you're in good company. They did the same thing. You will be rewarded. Never forget the 6 benefits, because they will help you stand strong for God. Would you bow your heads, please?